Hello, welcome to the community of the Holy Spirit. If you have looked for my Father, you have found me yet again. But don't worry, this too shall pass. I'll just mess with you. All right, this is going to be straight and to the point. It was pointed out to me by me that apparently I forget to start with a prayer. And we are in church, so I should pray before I begin. So, Lord, give us the words to say to bless your people, that it be edifying. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, with that having been said, when you go on the YouTube, it asks you to give a title. And hold on a second. Can you turn that light on a little bit for me? Right there? Just plug it in and turn it on because it's dark. But it asks you to give a title. And I don't know what title I gave. I think I put down what was said and what do you do. So let us begin. I hear a lot of people say, and it was part of, at when I was in school at Oral Roberts, and just being in Christian circles, you oftentimes hear people say things like, what does God want me to do? I don't want to make a misstep. I don't want to make a false step. Things like that. I want to do what's pleasing to God. And I hear, those comments, and let there be light. And those concepts, they used to bother me because everyone's, I'm like, you make being a Christian seem like it's just walking through a minefield, and such a minefield that you don't know what to do. You're scared to make decisions, or people are scared to make decisions. So I really thought about it, and I said, man, that just seems to be kind of rough. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to do the wrong thing. I want to be in God's will. I hear all those things, and people went to the perfect will, permissive will, all so many things. And I would just be like, oh my God, you're just making that up, because I can't find any basis for that belief system of what me making a mistake. Because when I look at the Bible, when I look at the word, I find I'm going to start with Genesis, the Adam and Eve story, creation of man, the fall of man in particular. Genesis 2:8-9. Now, I'm going to paraphrase this and sum it up. God made a garden, and in that garden, he put all the fruits and everything that man needed. And there were two trees in the center of the garden, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And he said, and I'm going to paraphrase what the Lord said, you can eat freely of any tree in the garden, except for the tree of knowledge of good and evil. For if you eat that, you will certainly die. Stop, full stop, and realize that if God has placed you somewhere and giving you the abundance, and people are like, oh, I don't want the Lord is tempting me, the Lord is trying me. I'm like, no, he really told you what to do and what not to do. Eat of anything. There's nothing in here you can't eat except for this one thing. Don't do that. That's the only thing he said do. How can you possibly make a false statement if God has placed you where he wants you to be and provided for you, and you're worried about, well, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't know how long should I be doing it. Lord, should I? And people are dropping. I'm like, he said you can do whatever. You can eat whatever, have dominion over. Just don't do this one thing. But too many of us ask these questions. And when you ask those questions, you start second guessing. And the thing is, asking the questions of what does God want me to do and all, like, it allows you to be easily taken off track. Because what did Satan say? What does the Bible say that Satan said? And let me jump in here and say, I promise you this is going to be quick. And I say that every time, but this time I'm really going to be quick. When a preacher says it, it's one thing. When a lawyer says it, it's even worse than when a preacher says it. But because one more question, Your Honor, 30 minutes later, that, judge once told me that was a really long question, Mr. Clemens. But anyway, here it is. What did Satan say? He said, did God really say that? What did God say about eating of that tree? Did he say you could not eat of any tree in the garden? Now, I took that when I heard that concept, And I thought, man, when they said the serpent was really wise, when I was younger, I didn't understand it. But as I got older, I really understood it. And I'll tell you why, because I did it as a prosecutor. When I had witnesses that I wasn't sure whether to believe or not, it was just a one person on person thing. I would listen to their story and then I would go, man, this is really, I got to make sure that I'm going to prosecute somebody properly and not somebody who's innocent, somebody who's being set up or lied about. So I would oftentimes try to make their case better for them. I would hear their story and then I would add some facts to it as I would recount it back to them. And I would say these words. I'm going to repeat to you what I heard you say. If I make any mistake, feel free to interrupt me. I'm not going to be upset because this is your story, not mine. And you correct me if I say anything wrong. You can interrupt me right then and just tell me I'm wrong. Please do it because I want to make sure I have it right. And then I would proceed to tell their story and I would intentionally add stuff to their story at parts that there were weak points. I'd add a piece. And I think you said you thought he had a gun, and then I'd keep going. And when people would go with me and let me make that misstatement, I would go, see, you're lying. You're not telling me the truth. There's something else going on here because I fixed that broken little lie you just told me. And you went with the fix I gave you. You didn't interrupt me. Whereas other people would cut me off. No, that's not what happened. I didn't even think he had a gun. Oh my goodness. And they would correct me and get me to the right spot. And I would be like, okay, this person is committed to the truth. And so that was one of the tests. That wasn't my only test. It was one of my tests that I would employ to try to make sure that a witness was being forthright with me. So when I look at what Satan did to Eve in the garden as it's recorded, I was very intrigued because he basically overstated the case. God said, you can't eat these trees in here. And Eve was like, no, that he said we would surely die. But what he said was, don't touch or eat. Already, Eve was off track because she didn't even know what God said. She didn't know. I mean, he said it to Adam and then Eve was created if you read the story. But the point being, she added to the story as opposed to responding. And then you say, well, she shouldn't have been conversing with the devil. I'm like, no. The fact of the matter is she didn't even know what she'd been told. She was unaware of the parameters that had been set. And so he said, well, I'm just going to tell you this. And he didn't say, eat it. He said he don't want you to eat it because he knows that you will then be like him and have knowledge of good and evil like he did. Now, this is the part that really got me. And this is, and work with me on this one. It said she saw that it was good to eat. This is Genesis chapter 3, verse 6. She saw that it was good to eat and also desirable of gaining wisdom. That's a noble concept. Think about that. What did Solomon ask for when God said, what do you want? Solomon asked for wisdom. It says when Eve responded to the serpent, she saw that it was good to eat and she was desirable of wisdom. Now you say, well, what does that mean, the idea of being desirable of wisdom? It means when you have been placed somewhere by the Lord, in a position, a place, a relationship, whatever. Don't start trying to come up with other values and other rules and other systems that you somehow make more noble than what God has told you. Oh, I think our relationship can go to a different level if, of course, we do these things. I'm making it more holy, making it more. This is the positive attributes. No, God didn't tell you to do that. He said, come over here and do this. Go join yourself to this body. Join yourself to this place. Do this work. My dad says, don't quit doing it to the person who tells you to quit, told you to start, tells you to stop. I look at it and I go, but what are you doing? Because I hear so many people get paralyzed. I want to do the right thing, but then they don't do anything. They don't do anything right because they're so paralyzed, or they go well beyond what they've been told to do because, well, that's also a good thing. Like, that is not what God told you to do. That's not how it was given to you. So if you know the parameters of what you've been given, they're pretty broad, and you can enjoy and make and have all the bounty that God gave you. Remember back in the garden, they were in a garden with all that they needed, and he said, you can have any tree. Now, again, people who are concerned about making a false step, I'm like, well, this is where I am right now. Well, where God put me in this city. Okay, so I have to do this. Well, no, he put you in this city, but this city is in a state. Did God tell you couldn't go through, you can travel state? Did he tell you, were there any restrictions? If there were not, quit living like any step you're going to make in comes of, an angry God swooping in, smacking you on the head and saying, "Oh, you made a misstep." People, "Oh, you made a mistake. You made a misstep." I'm like, whoa. Did they make a misstep? Because the only missteps that I see are disobedience. And I'll show you the ones. Eve, disobedience. First of all, she didn't know what she was being told because she said, "Don't touch or eat." And it was just don't eat. That's the first part. Second thing, look at Solomon. Solomon was told kind of a harsh story there with Solomon in 1 Samuel 15, but he was told to go destroy the Amalekites. Now we can unpack the whole genocide aspect of that story. I'll leave that to the theologians to address. But the fact of the matter is, he told him to destroy everything, and he didn't. He spared the king, and his men saved all the sheep and cows that were good. And then when Samuel the prophet came to him, he said, "Well, I was going to do this for it was going to be a sacrifice to God." See, making it more spiritual than it really was. Like, because I always go, that was sort of cruel of God to punish him, but it's like, no, because he lied. Because when Saul was telling his story to Samuel, Samuel said, "Well, why do I hear sheep when you told me you did everything God said?" Okay, well, all right, I really didn't do everything God said, but these are good for sacrifice. And he's like, "But didn't the Lord tell you to do certain things and you didn't do it?" And then he's like, "All right, you know what? The real truth of the matter is, I heard what the people said, and I didn't want to disappoint the people. I mean, my men they really wanted some stuff, and so I kind of made a decision to go ahead and go an extra step and do some other things." And it was like, so now we got it. You were given parameters on what to do, but rather than live within those parameters, you came up with some spiritual reason, which really was just a lie to disguise your disobedience. It's a sacrifice. No, it wasn't no sacrifice. You did that because you didn't feel like telling your men, "Y'all can't keep those cattle and those sheep and everything else, and the king's got to die too." We were told to destroy, but instead he tried to spiritualize it. Again, when you get planted somewhere and you try to spiritualize your decisions, "Oh, well, I'm with this person for this reason, or I'm doing this job for this. This is my ministry." I speak all the time, well, my ministry is. I'd be like, "That is not your ministry at all." It's not yours. I know it's not yours. You got some ulterior motives. You got something else you got planned. I don't know, and I'm not saying they were evil, nefarious motives. I'm just simply saying they weren't true and godlike motives, and they weren't consistent with what God had told you to do. But you can spiritualize it. And to those people who are impressed by spiritual talk, they're like, "Oh yeah, bless the Lord." Like, no. Now hold on. Let me tell you something else. I want to go back to the Garden of Eden and the idea of gaining wisdom and the talents. No, I'm sorry, the parable of talents. Another point. God put you somewhere, and you say, "Well, He didn't give me more directions." Take the parable of the talents. He gave each, 110, I think 1 8, 1 5, 4, 2, and I gave 1 1. And the one who was given the least didn't do anything with it, buried it. And he said, "I know you reap where you haven't sown." Basically, I know that if I had done something with this, you were going to take it from me. So I did nothing with it. But the parameters that he had been given, there were no parameters. Go do and be. Here are these talents. It even said you could have just given it to the banker, and I could have made some interest on that. But again, he didn't do that. Why? Why was that a problem? Again, it goes back to the idea of our decision making and the fact that we come up with reasons in our mind to not act or to act that are separate and distinct from what we know God has done for us, or He has given us, or He's placed us. If He's placed you in a place, bloom where you're planted. It means bloom. Go anywhere in the garden. Do it all. Just don't do the one thing He said don't do. If He says don't do this or be careful about this, well, mind that rule. Follow that rule. And that's the only real rule. Everything else is wide open. It's the field is wide open for you. And there will not be any harm. And it's not like you can make a misstep. I mean, I really think about people saying I'm making a misstep. And I'm like, well, it can't be a misstep if God didn't tell you not to step that way. You know what I mean? Like, well, did the Lord, people say, well, did the Lord tell you to go to the left? Well, then you should have just kept going straight. I'm like, well, did the Lord tell you to just keep straight? No. All right. And well, you could have gone left. So get down what you were told. And if you know what you were told, then you know how to act accordingly. But if you apply that Garden of Eden mentality, it's all good. do it all. You can't make a mistake. And then plus, if you're with one of your brothers, there 2 or 3 are gathered together in his name. He's there in your midst. So it seems to me that one of your brethren would have told you something. Now that don't get me off on that. But I just feel like our God, they say he's a just God, he's a righteous God. I like to say he's a fair God, because when people talk about justice, we use our American sense of justice, which is really retributive. We can have restorative, but it's still the idea of somebody lost and somebody has to be compensated. We do personal injury law, car accidents and stuff like that. You hurt my client, we want you to pay our client money so that our client you can't fix their leg, so pay them for the leg. I do criminal defense. When I was a prosecutor in criminal defense, people are like, we want justice. And I'm like, oh, do you really want justice? I mean, like, it just seems you want retribution. You want to get somebody back. But if you really think about justice and fairness, they really have nothing to do with each other. If you get a kid who's 12 who kills somebody, justice says put him in prison for the rest of his life, because we put grown-ups in prison for the rest of their life. That'd be justice. It's not fair. It's not right. But people misconstrue the concept of God being a just God with God being a vengeful God. And I don't think that he is. And I don't think that he would penalize us when we are in the place where he's told us to be, doing what he told us to do. And you explore the fullness of that. Go through the garden, explore it all. Just avoid doing the things that you know you're not supposed to do. And don't try to spiritualize your decision to alter it. And don't say, well, because if you get asked a question, did God really tell you to be here? Did God really say that you should do this or be here? Well, once you get asked that question and your response is, well, the simple answer is yes. That's what God said. And keep it moving. But did he do it? You're going to start second guessing. You're going to start putting your spin on it. You're going to start, you know what? Let me make this more godly. Don't even touch the tree. Let me do this. And the funny part is, if Eve said not even to touch it, then that meant that she went against 2 things. She went, number 1, against the rule she made up, don't touch it, because she had to pick it. And then number 2, she ate it. So she broke 2 rules already. But anyway, I guess my point in telling you that story, or going through the narrative of the fall, is the idea that we as Christians have been taught that we can make mistakes. We can disappoint God. We don't want to get off on the wrong track. Lack of faith, lack of discernment, lack of whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. All the examples I see in the Bible that I found have been disobedience. Saul, disobedient. Eve, disobedient. The parable of the talents. Well, insulting, but nonetheless disobedient, because he knew he was supposed to safeguard the masters, if you will. I have a problem using the word master, but he knew he was supposed to safeguard his superior's property, but instead he chose a passive aggressive response, which was to bury it so nothing else happened. But I think that we have to understand that God wants what's good for us. So explore, move around. I mean, really, don't be afraid to take that step. Hold on. I told y'all this is going to be quick. I have a few more points I want to make. I guess the final point that I want to make is this, is that I find that after listening to enough sermons and enough preachers and enough pontificators and enough whatever, they make the Christian walk more difficult than the Christian walk needs to be. I'm just being honest with you. It is not that hard. Because we know what you're not supposed to do. And so there you go. Now they also try to make God better than he is. I mean, and think about that for a minute. Well, that's not godly. I go, well, that's exactly what the Bible says. So that apparently would be godly. And they go, no, that's not. It's clearly wrong, because God would be in favor of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, well, maybe he wouldn't be. And it's his province not to be. I'm not condemning you, but I'm also not going to add it to my thing that I'm going to say is something that is in fact godly. But this Christian walk is not that difficult. And when I say it's not that difficult, it's difficult to resist temptation, particularly when it's a temptation you want to give into. That's the hardest thing to resist. Temptation that you don't want to do. Like, I don't like liver. I hate it. I hate it. I don't care what anybody tells me. You haven't tried my liver. Exactly. Because I don't want to try your liver because I don't like the taste of liver. You know, oh no, if you got a fried, I eat a lot of fried food. That's probably why I got to be so big, you know, but I don't want fried liver. I grill it, barbecue. I don't care what you do to it. It's not going to taste good because at the end of the day, it's going to be liver. And I don't like liver. And so it's a real simple process for me. It's a very simple process for me. I'm not going to eat liver. I follow those rules. That's Kirby's rule. That's me. But it's not a difficult walk for me to make. It's not a temptation that I have to resist to avoid because I don't want to do it. You understand what I'm saying? If there's stuff you don't want to do, but now you bring something around here that I do want to do, I love watermelon. And matter of fact, I'm going to do the stereotype. I actually love fried chicken and watermelon. And I'm not the least bit afraid to tell you that. And it's both of them are good to eat. If they have been in fact, I'm pretty confident there was somebody in the garden frying some chicken and breaking out some watermelon. I'm just telling you, some fried green tomatoes, maybe whatever. I'm also hungry. I haven't eaten right now. Last I ate was this morning. But that'd be a hard temptation for me to do away with. I struggle. I mean, my family is frequently, my wife checks my pockets for my receipts because she'll find out that when you go get pizza? And I'm like, man, how did you know I got pizza? She'll check the bank statements online, but like, yeah, I see you ate at this restaurant. And I'm like, you know, you were just too nosy. One day I went into the back room and I was eating something and she came in there and she goes, I knew you were back here eating something you shouldn't have been eating because you were back there too long. And I was like, how did you put those? I'm like, any other time my wife does not connect two dots, but all of a sudden she's Sherlock Holmes and figured out that I was in the back eating something I shouldn't eat. But I couldn't resist that temptation. So the point I'm making, tell you how my family persecutes me, the good Christian brother. But my point in telling you this is that the temptations that are difficult to reach difficult to resist are the ones that you want to do. But when it comes down to what decision to make, I guess I should have called this ethical decision making for Christians. God puts you in a place. Maximize that place. Explore it. Go anywhere. Go up, go down, go all around. Don't think you're going to make a mistake, because if he put you there and didn't tell you what not to do, that means you can do whatever as long as it's ethical or within the concept of Christian ethics. But you're not going to make a mistake. You're not going to make I don't displease. I hear that all the time. I don't want to displease the Lord. And I oftentimes go, no, you just don't know what to do, or you're too scared to make a decision. And you try to spiritualize your non-movement by calling your fear of displeasing the Lord. Make a decision and go. If it was going to displease God, he'd have told you this. Don't do that. Don't do that. And if you do it, I'll be displeased. That's pretty straightforward. He also gave you, if you read the Bible, if you study the word, there are plenty of guidelines for behavior. Don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat. You got those basic concepts. But if you're not doing that, are you not pleasing to the Lord? Are you not making decisions that are good and beneficial? When you maximize, like the people who were given the talents, when you go and you grow it, when you maximize your abilities. Well, I can't sing secular music. I've heard you sing it. You can sing it pretty good. Sing it. I can't, I probably shouldn't be, dealing with, I shouldn't be out here driving hard bargains. Drive them. Drive a hard bargain. Make money. Donate it. Do whatever. But quit thinking you're going to disappoint God. That's it. That is my sermon for the day. Ethical decision making. What did he really say? And do it. Don't be afraid. That's all. Lord bless and keep you. Bishop Kirby will be here next time you see someone. And I'd like to thank those of you who joined us on the sermon. It was good to see y'all here. Even when y'all numbers drop off, as a lawyer, I'm looking at it. I think it's like a juror falling asleep for me. I'm like, oh my Lord, somebody dropped off. They fell asleep. But it's okay. I understand. But I hope you all appreciated what I had to say. I hope it was beneficial to you. Y'all have a good day.